Yo, Grand Rising, how you doing? This is your coach Renz, and welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I will be your host tonight, as we will be going over some good info. And yes, Tim, I'm going to be nice tonight. I wasn't mean last night. You started it. That's all I'm gonna say about that one. Tim, you started it. You make your bed, man. You gotta lie in it. You gotta lie in your bed that you make, sir. As usual, we get 5 minutes to let people get on. And tonight we're going to be talking about the differences in the resurrection story, as there are two things that are very prominent. In order for you to believe in Christianity, you have to believe in Genesis, and you have to believe you should have to believe in Genesis, but then there are those who don't believe in Genesis but yet still believe in this Christianity. And so in order for you to believe in Christianity, you must believe in the resurrection. And we're going to go over that information concerning this resurrection and why it wouldn't hold up in any court of law. So that is our conversation for tonight, at least where we're going to start our conversation for tonight. If you're finding this channel for the first time, this is not a channel for those who are desiring to stay within their religion. This is a channel for people who have walked away from their religion. But invariably, there will be some people here who are still stuck in their religion and want to prove their point and try to convert us all over to absolutely no avail whatsoever. No. But please share, like the video. And get my cigar ready. I want to thank everybody who supports the channel. Thank you very much. All the people who are members, subscription holders. Thank you all guys very much. Grand Rising King Luther, Debbie. Welcome. We're streaming both on Facebook and YouTube, so you may not be if you're on YouTube, you can only see YouTube comments. If you're on Facebook, you can only see Facebook comments. Those that I respond to, I will put them on the screen 99% of the time. Oh, I told you guys last night, since I'm just wasting some time right now, how I started a brand new channel called Cowboy Cool Comics. So I had to create a comic wall yesterday, and that's why I started late. Let me show you guys my comic wall. I'm proud of myself. That's my comic book wall that I created for my channel, for my new channel. It was very difficult to pick which covers I was going to choose, but some were based on value, others were based on I just like that cover or that story. Thank you, King Luke. But yeah, I like that wall. A couple of tweaks I may make to it, but I like it. A couple of them not lined up exactly perfectly. Oh, that's the tip of the iceberg. There's literally about 2,000 to 3,000 comic books that I own. That's why it was so hard to pick which ones I was going to put on this wall. So that's 5 and 9. That's just 45 of them. Grand Rising, everybody. There was still some that I didn't put on there, but that was my project I was working on yesterday that made me late. But today we are on time. We got about 40 seconds before we get started on our conversation today. And the cigar for the night is the Gurkha Pure Evil. The Pure Evil from Gurkha. I didn't do that on purpose. I did not do that on purpose. That just happened to be what it is. Wow, that's funny. Make myself laugh. Let's see everything. Oh, let me check this before we before I get started because I don't see it. Yep, that's my cigar for tonight. It's called the Gurkha Pure Evil. It's a good cigar. It works. All right, so everything's good. Fake book is good. See, all right, Wrath, that's the kind of stuff I'm going to talk about on the comic book channel. Now, in fact, that's a good video to do for tomorrow. So let me think about it, and that'll be a video for tomorrow. Because I'm thinking Professor X powers would be like awesome, but then just to teleport would be cool as hell. But probably Professor X right off the bat. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. So, so why isn't it showing up here? I was looking for this video to show up somewhere else, but it's not showing up. So it's kind of bothering me, but it's all right. I know that you guys are here. I know that it's looks fine on my other platforms. Everything's good to go. So hopefully you guys have been having a great day today. We have some good 77-degree weather here today. Is actually got more than 77 today. It's 75 degrees right now, but had a great day today. Whew, it was 80 today. 80 tomorrow. That's nice. That's nice. Oh yeah. Thursday 72. Yeah, gotta get on the motorcycle. Gotta get on the motorcycle. Night crawling venom. Okay. See, Wrath. That's why we're gonna be on the other channel. That's a good video discussion for tomorrow. On a just straight video though. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about 50 degrees. No, sir. 63 felt like, man, if 63 degrees felt like summer, I would move. It's time to move. So what are we talking about tonight? Tonight, although you see a bunch of information up there behind me, and I'm gonna have to turn to look at some of it because I can't even read my own handwriting in reverse. We're going to discuss what's wrong with the resurrection story. Now, why is the resurrection story incredibly important? If you are a Christian, the resurrection story has to be true. It has to not have blemish. It has to be 100%. Because without the resurrection, there is no Christianity. Christianity does not work without the resurrection. So if you can logically and by the text poke holes in the resurrection story, then that makes the text untrue, basically. It makes the text a literary creation, which then makes your Jesus a literary creation. So, in order for Christianity to stand, that resurrection story has to be where you can't touch it. Now, we know that historically, there is no proof of this resurrection. There's no grave, there's no body sites, there's no one in the Bible you can find from that era, and that the Gospels were written second, third, fourth, fifth hand. None of them were actually written by anyone who actually witnessed any of the things that the Bible claims. We know this. Biblical scholars like to say that, well, it's close enough to the time frame that the people who wrote it would have been able to talk to people who were actually there. But we know how memory doesn't work, and we know how things can be legendized. So what we're going to see is that these stories don't add up. Now, when you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you're talking about writings that were more than likely, even though they try to put Mark around 69 CE, it's quite possible, but more than likely, Mark is written after 70. All of them are written after 70, all the way to John, which John is most likely written around 120, 130. So all these things are written decades and almost a century in the case of John after the so-called events happened. So that would be like me right now trying to, let's see, what's me right now trying to write about Martin Luther King, as if I was there. Are there people that I could interview who are still alive today? Of course. How good is those? How are those people's recollection between now and then? Right? It's not going to be perfect. They're not going to remember everything. How much legendizing has happened since then? If you grew up in Atlanta like I did, then you grew up believing that Martin Luther King was the most perfect person. He was such a great man. He never did anything wrong. He was a great husband, great father. He was all these great things. I was born in 1971, and he was already legendized by the time I first really started understanding who he was in the early 80s, around 82, 83. He was already being legendized in the Atlanta area. So we got decades going by, almost a century, and we're talking about a time frame where people believed in magic. That if I took this cigar and did a potion, did a spell and blew it on you, and you might get healed from something, kind of magic. That the Magi came and they had magic. You know, they believed that there was gods who controlled the weather. So the way a person would be legendized at that time is insanely grotesque compared to how we would do it today. So, and this is always funny to me. Yeah, they already getting started, but you were back there in those days, so you would know. Flip that right back onto yourself. So you were back there in those days, so how would you know? You see what I'm saying? You see how that argument doesn't work? You can't say, so, oh, you weren't there at that time frame, so how would you know it's not true? But neither were you. But yet you accept it, and I don't. I use rational thoughts, yet you don't. So anyway, let's get to it. Let's get to it. What are some of the differences that we're going to discuss as far as what this book says? And I know you guys cannot read my handwriting. Like I said, I can barely read it myself as far as what is up here. So what we're going to cover is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The who was there, meaning who went to the tomb, where was the stone, the time frame, the angel/men who were there, the disciples and what they were told or where they were, when they went there, who went inside, who touched Jesus, and then the meetup. Although there are plenty other aspects of this that you can focus on, there are other differences. These are the main ones because I only have so much room that I was going to utilize. So when we look at the first problem that we have with all the gospels, so Jesus supposedly not been crucified. Who was there? Who went to the tomb to be the first ones to realize that this Jesus had been sacrificed? Had been resurrected. And what's funny about this is that women like to jump on this one to say this is why women can be leaders in the church, because the first persons that went there was Jesus. Went there and spoke to Jesus was women. But there's a problem with what women. The first, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. That's all that Matthew says. The second, in Mark, it says Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of James, and Salome went there. So Matthew, I guess, didn't see Salome. Or you can count Salome and Mary, mother of James, in with Matthew's other women. And one of the conversations that people like to say is that, well, people are telling this from different perspectives, so the stories are not always going to be the same. And I can see that, but there are certain things that you're going to notice. You're going to know how many people went there. Because in Luke, you got Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, Joanna, and other women. And then in John, the only person who goes there is Mary Magdalene. How in the hell did John not see all the other women? How are there discrepancies in which women went there? Now, you can say the other women, maybe Matthew didn't know Salome that well. Maybe Maybe Mark just knew Salome. Maybe Luke knew Joanna, but he didn't know Salome. You can make cases for that. But the problem is, this is a close knit circle of people. So you would have to say they didn't know a close knit circle of people. And we know that Luke is saying that he's not an eyewitness, and John is saying that he's not an eyewitness. These two are claiming to be eyewitnesses in a close circle of people, but yet Matthew didn't know Mary, the mother of James. Mother of James. This is an important person. And he didn't know Salome. He just knew Mary and the other Mary. So when he wrote it, maybe he didn't like Mary, the mother of James. He just called her the other Mary. So we have a discrepancy already. And then, of course, John is just saying only Mary Magdalene was the only one who went there. That already showed. So we should be able to just discount James right off the bat simply because he the only one. I mean, John. Because even if it's come from different perspectives, if there are people going to the tomb, you should see what the difference between 1 and 2 and 3 people. There's a big difference if you didn't know the count. Oh, it was 10 people, it was 7 people. But one person compared to many, you wouldn't be able to say that. Now, the next part is the stone, because that's the big other part. According to Matthew, and Matthew is the only one that says that there were guards, that the Romans posted guards at the tomb for fear that somebody may come and steal the body and then claim that he has been resurrected. That's an important thing, but Matthew is the only one who says that. That's not said in Mark, it's not said in Luke, and it's not said in John. Mark, Luke, and John simply says that it was rolled away already. That when the women approached, it was already rolled away. According to Matthew, though, an earthquake happened. These women witnessed the earthquake, and the earthquake happens. The guards witnessed the earthquake happens, and then the stone rolls away because of the earthquake. Now, you can make a case and say that, well, all of them say that the stone rolled away, and maybe Mark, Luke, and John just didn't mention that an earthquake happened. But an earthquake this earthquake would have to be so strong that it's rolling away a big ass boulder that's covering a grave that is designed to keep animals and looters out. Think about that. So this is not like a few pebbles. This is not like it's a 50-pound rock or even 100-pound rock. This is like a big. This would have. And I've been to Israel and I've seen these tombs of that first century time frame, and to cover that entryway, the rock has to be about half a ton to a ton and for an earthquake to be able to roll that away, it would have to be an earthquake that should have been reported in Roman journals. There should have been in destruction that would have happened on some of the buildings. There would have been something else in history that would corroborate this earthquake. Yet there's absolutely zero evidence outside this Bible that the earthquake happened. James, you getting your hat handed to you, brother, because go read Matthew. Matthew says that an earthquake happened. That's funny to me. Yeah, this joker said, oh, so y'all can see, I ain't gonna read all this, but he said, no, it wasn't an earthquake. The stone rolled away and you don't like it. It says an earthquake rolled the stone away. Go read it for yourself. This just shows that people don't read this Bible. There's always one that comes in. So we got that part. No Roman guards in any other story. No earthquakes in any other stories. Only Matthew is claiming that some earthquake happened. Now, the time of day, I found it interesting. It's not massively different, but the biggest difference. So Matthew is saying it happened when the dawn was happening, at the beginning of dawn, right? Mark, though, says that the sun was already up. It was early in the day, but the sun had already risen. There's a big difference between dawn, when the sun begins to rise, and when the sun has already risen. And then Luke says that it was early dawn. So Luke and Matthew kind of similar. a little bit later from Mark. But the problem is John says that it was still dark. I can accept different stages of the early morning, right? Whether the sun is fully risen or mostly risen or already risen. But dark? You don't know the difference between light and dark? That's a big problem. That's a big problem. So the time frame is a little bit off. You know that it's morning, but they can't tell you whether it's dark or it's light, how much light going on. But the fact of the matter is they got 3 different time frames. We can let the first 3 slide, but we can't let still dark slide. Still dark just doesn't slide at all. All right, not even a little bit. Now, the angels or shining men who were there. This is not something you can make a mistake on. This is something that has to be exactly the same, right? Is that? I'm sorry. And now Eric said the stone grew legs back in the times. They forgot to mention that part, that the stone grew some legs. Oh, because Debbie said that the stones walked away. Now, James is being useful, y'all. Let me tell you why James is being useful. This is a demonstration of how people go to churches and pastors have a tendency to pick their version of the story that they like. According to James, the sun was fully risen, and with God came out from the tomb, and we're talking about Jesus, and God was in the tomb for 30 days and 30. What? Okay, I don't know what version that is. I've never read any version that said that he was in the tomb for 30 days and 30 nights. I don't know what Bible you read. Damn. I thought you was going to use one of the versions like it was the sun was up, and maybe Mark is the version. Now understand, Mark stops at a certain point. After the tomb is rolled away, the original version of Mark has nothing. So you'll see either in parentheses or you'll see a footnote at the end of Mark that when it says that the tomb, the stone had rolled away and the tomb was empty, there's nothing else. So the fact of Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of James, and Salome came there, that was added. What we're talking about now, the angels added, the disciples are going to be added, the who went inside added. So all this next part, everything else from here on out, plus the Marys who went there, was all added to Mark much later. That the original version of Mark, the most original version of Mark, does not have anything after and the tomb was empty. You know. So inside the tomb, the angels, according to Matthew, when the stone was rolled away by the earthquake, were sitting on the rock that rolled away, or at least sitting on some rocks. Right? So Matthew, there's one angel, and they're outside sitting on the rock. In Mark, what was added to Mark is that they were sitting inside, that an angel was sitting on the inside, and they were sitting on the right side of the deathbed. Like when you go to Israel, they laid the body on like this stone, this flat stone, and that's where the kind of the deathbed was. And it was just one, and it referred to him as a young man. So it was one young man that was laid, that was on the right side of the death stone of the so-called Jesus, but inside the tomb. But of course, like I said, Mark is added. Which should tell you something right there when they can add stuff to the Bible and people still believe it. According to the Luke story, they appeared. They weren't already there. See, in the Mark and the Matthew story, the angels was already there. And in the John story, when we get to it, they were already there. But in the Luke story, they suddenly appeared inside the tomb, right? And they were standing, 2 of them. And these are considered to be shining men. Later on, they're described as angels, but in Luke, they're described as shining men. And they were just standing inside the tomb. And this happened before the disciples visited. So Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James, Joanna, and the other women, they go inside the tomb and they see these two shining men inside the standing inside the tomb. Now this is very important because later on, some of them say that the women don't even go inside. Matthew and John said the women didn't go inside, but yet they went inside and saw two shiny men inside the tomb. And this happened before Peter comes, because later we're going to talk about how Peter is the only one who came to the tomb, according to Luke. Now in the John version, they already was inside sitting at the head and the feet. There was two of them, but this happens after the disciples meet. So when the women show up, the women don't go inside the tomb in John, and it is not until Peter and a beloved disciple go inside the tomb in John, and then you get where the shining people showed up. So how can some of them say that the angel was on the outside and the women didn't go in? The angel was on the inside. It was one angel who was sitting on the inside, sitting on the right side, but the women did go in. But no men went in. And in Matthew, no men went in. But then in the Luke side, you got the two angels standing in there. The women went in, and then Peter comes and looked later, but the angel was already there beforehand. And then in the John version, the women don't go in, but there are angels who are sitting at the head and the foot of Jesus, of where Jesus was lying on this little stone. When Peter goes in, and the beloved disciple who's never mentioned just peeks his head in. You see, there's a whole lot of contradictions here, a whole bunch of contradictions. Too many contradictions, actually. Like for most people, I'd already be out. I'd be like, okay, this. If you was in court, the judge would have already ruled. This is why eyewitness account is the least acceptable evidence in court. Now in the story, according to the story, when Mary or Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, whichever group of these women that they claim that went there, these women didn't go in Matthew. They didn't go and get Peter, and then Peter rushed to the tomb. No man went into the tomb. They were merely told by the Jesus character that they are to tell the disciples to go meet in Galilee. Now that's the part where a lot of women like to say women are leaders of the church, because the first commission or his first word spoken to by Jesus after he died and was resurrected was spoken to a woman. They negate the fact that the instructions were told, hey woman, go tell my bros to meet me in Galilee. All right. So they were told to go meet in Galilee in Matthew. The same group of women plus Salome and Mary, well, just the three women were told, go tell the men to meet in Galilee. So Matthew and Mark, they function in the same way. On Luke, though, the disciple Peter, he goes and runs and goes into the tomb because he doesn't believe Mary Magdalene when she tells him. He doesn't believe the women. And so he goes and he got to see it for himself. Now, when he gets there, it only talks about that he found the linen cloth. This whole fake shroud of Turin, he said that he only found the linen cloth. According to John, Peter goes, but another young man who is supposed to be a beloved disciple of Jesus rushes ahead of him and gets there before him, because Peter old. And when they get there, Peter goes in. This is when Peter sees the two angels at the head and the feet, but he also sees there's a linen body cloth and a linen head cloth. So if you went by John, the shroud of Turin can't be correct because it's two pieces of cloth. If you go by Luke, then the shroud of Turin, it still ain't correct, but at least it fits that is one full cloth. But how does Luke and John have two different sets? The reason, in my opinion, the reason burials were done differently when Luke wrote than how burials were done when John wrote. Or people just did burials differently. We can go today. Some people do a burial where the dead person is sitting up there playing cards. Some people get cremated. So people just do things differently. But most likely, it's the fact that the time difference between the Luke writing and the John writing, even though there are a lot of scholarship today that is saying that Luke is not the original, but the gospel, according to the Marcion gospel, is actually the Luke gospel expanded. I know y'all been saying stuff and I haven't been looking. Oldest manuscript we have doesn't have a resurrection story. You think that it was the oldest Mark. Right. I talked about that earlier, Florida, how all of this part, from here on down with Mark, none of this was current. All of that was written later. So what was inside, the two young men, the told to go to Galilee, who was in the, did the women go inside? All that stuff was added later. So we see that there's differences with the disciples and what their actions were, who went, who didn't go, and it's personified here even more that women, no woman went inside, no man went inside. Well, Matthew doesn't mention any men going inside. Same thing with Mark, but Mark says that the women went inside. So which one is it? Did the women go inside or did they not go inside? The Jesus in the Matthew story comes up and meets them, the angels, and he's like, well, they see the angel's like, he ain't here no more. And then Jesus pops in on them, and he like, hey, how you doing? Go tell my dudes to meet me in Galilee. And so the women don't even go inside. And so they don't go tell the men, and the men come rushing back. Yet in Luke and John, the men come rushing back. Well, Peter at least comes rushing back, and then Peter and another dude come rushing back. In Mark, though, the women did go inside, and that's when they saw the angel, because the angel was on the inside. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to see the angel. So they saw him on the inside, but it doesn't mention about any of the disciples coming and running there. Of course, the women go on the inside because the angels are on the inside in the Luke story. And then Peter goes, but he only looks in. He doesn't go inside. And that's important because in the John story, none of the women go inside because they're told none of the women go inside. They just look in, but then when they went to tell Peter and the other disciples, only the young man looked in and Peter went all the way in. And so the story changes as you go along, which one it is. Just saying, make sure I catch up. I know James is writing a bunch of stuff, but I ain't paying attention to that. So now here's an important part. According to the Matthew story, the earthquake rolled away the stone, and the Roman guards fled. Then it was the early dawning of the day, and outside of the sitting on the rock was the angel. This angel told Mary Magdalene and the other Mary that the disciples are to go and meet them in Galilee, but nobody goes in and checks for the body. But then Jesus appears to Mary Magdalene, and she touches his feet. She touches his feet, according to the story, according to Matthew. She touches his feet. Doesn't have that in Mark at all. Doesn't have that in Luke at all. But in John, Mary Magdalene, the only person who goes to the tomb, nobody else goes to this tomb originally, just her. The stone was already rolled away. It was still dark. The angels were already on the inside, sitting head to feet, but she only peeked in. And there was no angels there, nothing. And she sees Jesus. So she gets there. She doesn't go in. The stone is rolled away. She sees Jesus. Jesus then tells her, "Don't touch me because I haven't transfigured. I haven't ascended yet." Then she goes off and tells Peter, tells the disciple, Peter and the young man run up, find the head linen cloth, head to toe, a head cloth and a linen cloth, and The young man looked inside. Peter went inside. Told that she touched his feet in Matthew, didn't touch the feet, was told not to touch the feet in John. Which is it? Angels show up sitting on a rock. Mary Magdalene never sees any angels, according to John. But Mary Magdalene and the other Mary sees the angels, according to Matthew. Problem here. Last problem. Where's the meet and greet for Jesus and the disciples? If Jesus gave Mary and the other Marys a message, you would think that message would be important, that it would be recorded perfectly. In Matthew, when Mary Magdalene and the other Mary spoke to Jesus and worshiped him, he told them, tell my fellows to meet me in Galilee. They met on a mountain in Galilee. Nice, tidy story. Matthew says that they were told to meet in Galilee, but doesn't mention the meetup because Matthew was written, did not have none of this stuff in there. Didn't even have to be told. You can't tell somebody to meet you in Galilee and then you didn't really have that in your story. In the Luke version, you got Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James, Joanna, and the other women. They see the stone that's rolled away. They see the angels. They see the angels inside because they went inside. Then Peter went to the tomb, found the linen cloth, and then the women were told that they are supposed to meet, that they're going to meet Jesus, but instead of Galilee, they meet in a room in Bethany. Now, the disciples meet in a room in Bethany. Galilee, Bethany, two different places. So where did they first meet Jesus? According to Matthew, Galilee. According to Mark, they were supposed to meet in Galilee, but there's no conclusion of it. But the disciples met Jesus in Bethany in the story of Luke. Now, also in the story of Luke, it says that on the road to Emmaus, that Jesus showed up to Cleopas and another one of his disciples. Nobody else knew about that meeting. Nobody else knew about that meeting. Only Luke knew about that meeting. Luke telling that part of the story just shows you how the story is being changed because people are telephone gaming. It's the telephone game. Luke admits that he supposedly just interviewed people and people are telling him different variations of the story. So Luke didn't meet anybody who told him that they met on the mountain in Galilee, that they were supposed to meet in Galilee. Luke hears about, oh, they're supposed to meet in Bethany. Now, as far as John is concerned, who is the latest writer, most likely, Mary Magdalene shows up, the stone is rolled away. It's still dark outside. Mary doesn't go inside. She then the angel tells her, then Jesus shows up and says, hey, I'm risen. Don't touch my feet, even though she touched him in Matthew. And told her to tell the disciples, I'm going to meet up with you. But Peter came and was a young man. And the first time they met was in the upper room in Jerusalem. So meeting in Galilee, so told to meet in Galilee, but no confirmation. Met in Bethany. But in John, they met in the upper room. But only 10 of them met in the upper room. Because Thomas wasn't there for the first meeting in the upper room. But then they had a second meeting in the upper room. And Thomas did show up for that one. And then they met one more time in the Sea of Galilee. So they met 3 times in John. Matthew didn't know about Jerusalem. So Matthew didn't know about the upper room. Neither did Mark or Luke. None of them knew about the upper room. I'm gonna bust up in that motherfucker and start singing the upper room. Yes, I love that movie Life. That's exhausting. Yes. These are in movie world, these are called plot holes. These are plot holes. These are holes in the plot. Things that cannot be fixed. Contradictions to the story. And no matter where Jesus walked in the upper room. Y'all know Life is a great movie. All right, let me fix my camera a little bit more. Better lighting here. So, first of all, does anybody have any questions about anything that I just said? Now, if you think about it, if you were given all that information concisely like that by a pastor when you was in church, when you was young, or by your parents or whomever, is there any way that you could have still believed in this book? I mean, this is just this story alone, this portion of the story, and what most Christians will say at this point. But the only thing that matters is that he rose. And every last one of them says that he rose. No, everything around the story has to be consistent. Otherwise, the story is not true. You can't have it where you don't know who showed up. You can't have it where you don't know what time they showed up. You can't have earthquakes and nobody else talks about an earthquake. That's a massive event, an earthquake. An earthquake large enough to move a stone that's like weighs at least a ton. That's a massive event, but you somehow missed that? No, that'd be like talking about the history of New Orleans and you leave Katrina out. How can you leave Katrina out of the history of New Orleans? Or to talk about America and just be like, I'm gonna leave out 9/11. You can't. You can't write a history book without and leave those two events out. And it doesn't matter if 50 people are writing about the history of Louisiana, all 50 are going to write about Katrina. If you're writing about the history of New York, all 50 are going to write about 9/11. There's absolutely no way you can consider yourself writing something true and not write about that event. It just doesn't happen. So an earthquake that the magnitude is to roll away a 1 ton at least stone? No. And then they don't know who was there. They all got difference of opinion of who showed up. And where was the angel? Sitting outside on the rock? Oh no, he was sitting. There was one sitting on the inside. No, there was two. They were standing on the inside on the right side. Now they showed up all of a sudden, or they were showing up and they were sitting at the head and the foot. If we walked into a room and you saw some angels, you're going to say where they were standing. There's not going to be a difference as to where some big alien looking jokers shining all bright are standing. And especially if it's outside versus inside. You can't do that. It's one on the outside, the other's on the inside. Like Matthew is definitely outside. Mark is definitely inside. Doesn't work that way. Which then causes the problem where in Mark the women don't go inside the tomb at all. But in order for the women to see the angel, the women had to go on the inside. Doesn't work. In John, before the disciples come, the women had to go inside to see the two shiny men. But in Luke, but in John, the women don't go on the inside because the event doesn't happen until after the disciples come. So between Luke and John, you have a difference of a timeline of when did these shiny people show up? Before Peter showed up or after Peter showed up? According to Luke, it was before Peter showed up. According to John, it's after Peter showed up. Can't have that discrepancy and still claim that this story is true. Because the fact that all the events surrounding this so-called event are grossly different, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And then the disciples can't even figure out where they're going to have the family reunion. They're either in Galilee, not talked about, in Bethany, or they in Jerusalem in the upper room where Jesus walked. And I can tell you that these people who are Christian do not read this book at all. Because just look at the first sentence of what James is talking about. Shining people. Who are these shining people? If you actually have read the Bible, then you will realize that Mark and Luke refers to them as shining men. Later on, they are described as angels, but in Mark and Luke, they are described as shining men. So I don't know if you can read it or not, but you might want to go and read that. Well, you should be able to read. Hell, you can write, but this might be talking text for all I know. It was the Celestials. It was really Fastus and Icarus who was standing there. So oh man. Oh. So basically this story, even within, because there are four different accounts and they claim that these are four eyewitness accounts. And anytime you hear somebody saying that these are eyewitness accounts, you know that they're not telling the truth, because one, John and Luke are definitely known to not be eyewitness accounts. Luke admits that he's not an eyewitness, but he claims that he's gaining this information from eyewitnesses. But if that is the truth, then why do all the eyewitnesses give very disturbing differences in their story? And one of the biggest disturbing differences, if Jesus' resurrection is supposed to be true, then how can Jesus give two different messages? He was touched and worshiped by Mary Magdalene in Matthew, but in John told, don't touch me. I would think that that would be a clear and easy thing to know the difference of, whether he was touched or not touched. But according to this, that's a big difference. And then where did they see Jesus? Where's the first time they saw Jesus? If he truly resurrected, most of now this is a lot of different stuff, but one of the linchpins for me was this part right here, the touching and the non-touching, but then their first meeting with Jesus were all in different places. If Jesus had truly resurrected and told the women where he's supposed to meet his disciples, how is it that it happened in three different places instead of the one place? That should have been a part that all of them got right. So it really just tells me that people are legendizing this story, making up their own story, that they took this story of a person who was trying to change Judaism, and made it into Christianity. And you have to remember also that there was no golden age of Christianity. Christianity has always been wrought with people believing different things from different groups, that just as there are all these denominations today, they were broken up back then. And none of these things can be traced back prior to 70 CE. So all of it is written so many years, decades later, a century later, and then edited and edited and edited for over 1,000 years. Up until today, it's still been edited. So what do you guys think? I know I said it, but I didn't look at any comments at the time frame. But if this was presented to you, is there any way you would have stayed with this religion? I know the majority of people on here have already deconstructed. But there's no way. I can't see how any intelligent person could remain in Christianity once you see and understand that the thing that keeps your religion, that makes your religion, has so many contradictions and variables and plot holes. wouldn't have cared. So I guess you can hear all this information and still roll with your Yahweh God. And this is true going. It's solid proof, but when people believe in act of God, proof doesn't matter. If you believe something, you're not going to care. You will find the justification. You will find some method to keep your uh, to keep that as your focus. I, oh, so Dwayne left and he went to Islam. And how long did you stay in Islam? So you don't believe in spirit. I don't think there's a proof of spirit. I think people confuse, to me, consciousness. I accept that a consciousness exists because we can prove it, we can observe it. I am conscious. Now, where does it come from? We don't know. What is it made of? Don't really know. But spirits, nah, not so much. I don't think that. The only spirit I believe in is the spirit that other people got inside them, that of other people's mind and their own energy. 15 years in Islam. That's a long ass time. Spirit is alcohol. Yeah, it only took me about 6 months with it, 6 months to a year with Islam for me to be like, nah, this ain't gonna work. But and I also think spirits is a cop out that people like to use. Honestly, uh, oh, I just didn't know the spirit came over me, and I just didn't mean to say what I said. No, just the hell you did. That was your own energy. That was your own thoughts. That was that real shit about you that you don't want everybody to know about. That's it. People be like, "Oh, the spirit came over me." No, that's your emotions. Do you believe in some sort of higher power? Not really. There's not enough evidence to prove a creator God, if you mean of that sort. Are there higher levels of consciousness that do I think that there are higher levels of consciousness? Sure, I think that. I don't. I The best estimate is that there are higher levels of consciousness. Do we maintain our consciousness, and if we have learned enough, be able to go to those conscious levels? I would hope so. Can you prove that any of that exists at a higher level? Hell no, you can't. Do I think that there's some creator God that manifested the universe? No. There's no evidence to dictate that. So I hope that answers your question. Now, If you had asked me, do I hope that there is a creator? I would hope that there is some higher conscious being that manifested the universe. But there's not one being that man has ever thought about, created, that would fit my requirements for that being. If that being requires any worship, it cannot be God. It cannot be the creator. If that being has any emotions that forces it to act one way or another, it cannot be. If you can name it, if you can put it in a book, if you can describe it, that ain't it. So it'd be nice that if there was some being that said that, you know what, hey, I really only created you to see if you can develop into, a higher conscious, think beyond the box, and now go manifest whatever version of a universe you want to live in inside of my universe, and you good. Oh, but for them dumb motherfuckers who believe that shit that other people created, like Yahwehs and Jehovah's and Allahs and all that, nah, you just keep on repeating until you finally get it. I would be cool with that. I think that'd be great. But do I think that's real? Probably not. I hope it is. It'll be nice if it was. But based on all levels of thought process, it's not. Sean, I find the best way to really irritate a person is to ignore the shit out of them, Sean. People on Facebook know why I'm saying that. Thankfully, the people on YouTube are being spared some of the most idiotic comments made by somebody on Facebook. King Arthur, who are you talking to? Oh, you're not talking to me. You're talking to somebody else. King, I called you King Arthur. King Luther. Oh, you're talking to Jay. Wayne Witherspoon. Welcome. Oh, okay. It gets too much. I understand. I understand, Sean. What did fan followed up? I feel you. Find it funny how everyone trusts books as the best form of communication from God when it's easy to be manipulated and have multiple interpretations. Exactly. And not to mention the fact that they're trusting people who knew less about the universe than we know now. They knew less about nature. They had these views of the universe that gods were in control of weather, they were in control of storms, they were in control of earthquakes, they were in control of volcanoes, they were in control of crops growing, they were in control of the river flowing. And we know better now, but you want to trust those people. You want to trust their information. Yeah, Leon, I feel you. Wait. So, Leon, I feel you. So, my suggestion, I'm going to put the YouTube link in here. And then you won't have to be bothered with a lot of his idiotic rambling. Yep. Come on over to YouTube. If his uneducated in non-intelligible writings just bothered you so much. You see, I just see his name and I just skip on. But let me so as they used to say back in my day. Yeah, you can, if you want to stay on Facebook, you can personally block seeing people's comments. But as they used to say in my day, we got probably about an hour left. And unless somebody has a question about what we talked about today, the doors of the church are now open for anybody who want to come on to the channel. The doors of the church are open for any questions or comments or statements. An earthquake is an event to witness, especially when you're supposedly sitting on a rock. Yeah, that one, that bothered me when I was about 10 years old and I was reading the Revelation stories. And I was like, I recognized that there was a difference even when I was 10. Like, why is there not this earthquake in Mark, Luke, and John? That earthquake certainly should have been there. There's absolutely no way. When we had a little earthquake in Atlanta back in 2008, I believe it was, shit, everybody talked about it. Okay, y'all, I know he gets on everybody's nerves, but I have one statement for you. You need to go back to church and get God and your knife so I can stab the shit out your God. So I can stab the fakeness of your God, because I just be stabbing air. Oh, oh. Oh my gosh. That is so funny. That is so funny to me. Okay, so let me watch this. Let me act like a pastor. Watch this. Watch this. We covered it wasn't an earthquake, right? I want you to see it. This is your little Bible, Matthew 28. What does it say? What does it say? What does it say, James? Huh? What does it say, James? Come on. Come on, James. Come on, James. James. Come on, guy. Come on, fella. Come on, big fella. What does it say, James? Come on. Come on, James. It's too breezy. I will now read this in my young girl Maria's voice.
Now I'm going to read to you Matthew 28, starting at verse 1, so that James can understand that he absolutely knows nothing about his Bible, because you see the statement that he just made up there, because it wasn't an earthquake. Now, after the Sabbath, towards the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb, and behold, there was a great earthquake. For the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled the stone and sat on it.
So tell me again how there wasn't an earthquake? Tell me again how there wasn't an earthquake. What I just read. Tell me how it wasn't an earthquake. I know. I know. Most people find it strange that I can do that voice. Tim, when I meet you, I'm gonna talk like that the whole time. Just to let you know. I'm gonna talk like that the whole goddamn time. Don't you love it though? Don't you love when they make them claims? Oh, there was no earthquake. There was no earthquake the whole time. There was no earthquake. There wasn't no earthquake. I don't know what you're talking about, boy. There wasn't no earthquake going on around there. You talking about earthquake? There wasn't no earthquake. Bible don't talk about earthquake. You uneducated for a black man. There wasn't no earthquake. There ain't no earthquake. There ain't no earthquakes going on. Bam! Matthew 28. Earthquake. And y'all really think y'all want me to debate people? Y'all really think y'all want me to debate people? Y'all think I'm gonna be nice debating people? Because I just sat here this whole time and I was just okay. I'm gonna let James keep saying no earthquake, no earthquake, no earthquake, no earthquake, and then I'm gonna bust that shit out of the earthquake. Oh my God, that was so fulfilling. I rather enjoyed that. Now, I really don't want to debate people. I wouldn't mind interviewing people, but debating people is not something I'm really looking to do. Interviewing people, sure. And most of the time, interviewing people who know more scholarship than I do. It will be my preference. Oh, I remember those commercials. And yes, my wife is gonna pick on me because I broke out my little girl Maria voice to read that. So she gonna have jokes. Um, so Leon Clark, that channel is called Voiceovers by Renz on YouTube. Voiceovers by Renz, Renz, on YouTube. I've only done one story, but I plan to do another story. I'm planning to add more stories this week. So that would be Voiceovers by Renz, where I read stories. I did my first one. I got to find better acoustics in this house, but I'm gonna use the closet actually. No, Will, and he claims it's his first language is English. Ah, but you're right, Marcy. No, yeah, it Macy. Sorry, I don't have my reading glasses on, so it's a little fuzzy. Most Christians don't read the Bible, so they rely on what their pastor said, and that's the problem with people, is that that's all they do is they rely on whatever the pastor had told them, and that's why most of them don't actually know their Bible. You stupid. Probably could, but I would want to do more than just put them in jail. Right now, believers do out. Well, no, believers. It depends on how you're looking at it. All right. Currently in the world today, there are approximately about 2.6 billion people who believe in Christianity. So that means that there are about 4.4 billion people who do not believe in Christianity. So there are more non-believers of Christianity than there are believers of Christianity. Now, if you just took away people who don't believe in any of these religions and just compared them to them, there's roughly about it's a growing number. I think it's close. Hold on, I don't want to misquote it. How many non-believers are there in the world? So right now, the non-believers is 450 to 500 million. So I was going to say 500 million, but I wasn't quite sure. But according to most research, it's roughly about that. But we are growing. The number of people who do not believe in this stuff is growing rapidly. Casey, you late. We went over, all that is up there. They cannot agree upon none of it. Most of the stuff about the resurrection is not agreed upon by the overwhelming majority of the Bible. Oh no, it's cool, Casey. A lot of people join late, but yes, most of it. If you look at the first, starting around the 6 minute mark is when we got started, and we went on to about the 1 hour mark, uh, breaking down all these different variables as to the differences in the story. And there's a hell of a lot of differences in those stories, but you're good to go. It's not really a terrifying. It is terrifying in the sense that most people on the planet believe in one religion or another, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and so on and so forth. The big three really is Christianity, um, Islam, and Hinduism, or Indus religion. But right behind them is Buddhism, and then I think the non people who don't believe in any of these guys is right behind them, and then Judaism, and then you go down the line. So the numbers has grown tremendously over the last 30 years. Now, if they were to be able to really dig deep into a person's belief system, I would imagine that more than half of the people who believe in Christianity don't actually believe in Christianity. You know what I mean? Like, I got family members who will say that they believe in Jesus, but if you really, really nail down and talk to them, they really don't believe in Jesus. They just accept what my family has already always believed in and said, but there's nothing about, you know, I mean, they're good people, but there's nothing about their life that you would say that, okay, you are actually a true believer. I probably did, so post it again. Yeah, they did wait an incredibly long time to write about this Jesus, and mainly is because there was no Jesus to really write about in the way that the Gospels write about this Jesus. So the story, in my thought process, being made up by the Flavian family, there was nothing to actually write until much later. If you actually read the Bible, you may draw to the conclusion that God is schizophrenic, and might question, or you might question your own sanity trying to make sense of what is real. Absolutely, 100% agree with that. That this God has so many problems. That this God is worse than most people. What? In New Zealand, there's a group of people who worship eels and believe that the eels are gods. I'm not surprised. I think that L. Ron Hubbard is one of the smartest men in the world because he realized that if he wanted to become rich, start a religion, and he did. And I think that those people are just idiots. You can literally see that he created this religion. And you're right, churches are closing left and right. Church membership is down dramatically. There's a massive 10,000 church, 10,000 member church. Well, it used to be a 10,000 member church where I grew up in Marietta, and they barely got 500 people in there now. Oh no, 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 no. Scientology is not Hermetics. Scientology teaches that some overlord alien just put some sperm or some body parts in a volcano and that birthed out humans, and we got to try to escape from here, and we got to get our engrams read by some shit to be able to escape from here. It's like space aliens. It's more like the Sumerian religion mixed in with some Gnosticism and some fantasy writing. You can start a new religion. It's a lot of dumbass people out there who believe it. What up, Isaac? I forgot to text you, my guy. I forgot. No, I said I'll text you in February. February is not over. They don't believe how many people do you think will refuse the mark of the beast and watch their loved ones slowly die from starvation, dehydration, and exposure. The perform faith, they perform faith because they know they don't have to prove faith. Exactly. And that I would love to see us move to a one world currency just to see how many real Christians there are. Just to see how many real Christians there are. Now, I know I asked dude to post this comment again. I'll make sure I ain't miss it again. I don't see it, so I don't think I missed it. No, you can find somebody who will follow anything. You're absolutely right. We say I'm broke. I did a little preaching to a Christian last week with the problem he had, and I should probably go open a church and be sure to quote Malachi every Sunday. Look, if you are broke, like how many prisoners get out of jail and they know getting into the preaching game is a good way to get money without going back to jail? That video about Atlantis didn't come through. It wouldn't let me open it. So the reason why Easter changes every year because Easter is based on the spring equinox. So the first Sunday after the spring equinox is going to be the Passover, and so then Easter or something like that. So then the Passover has something to do with the spring equinox. Whenever that happens, that's when you're going to have Easter. So it has to be after the spring equinox. And because that changes every year, because there are 13 moon cycles a year, you're going to get a different time frame for Easter. Say you told your mother that the church that you used to attend won't exist 20 years from now, while the past have been trying to pay off the building for over 20 plus years. And it probably won't. I'm surprised the little church that I was a deacon at is still there. I'm pretty sure it's going to die soon too. Yeah, Sean, that's cool. You can go ahead and put her name in here. No. If you had a, you see, the reason why the lunar calendar doesn't work is because it would mess up. Well, we could do it now, but over time, the seasons will get messed up. You will start having spring in February. You see what I'm saying? Like the months that we're accustomed to having certain climates will begin to change, and that's why uh, the Julian calendar was created, and then the uh, Gregorian calendar. I was on the pathway to becoming a pastor. When I was the chairman of the deacon board, I was being offered scholarships to go to seminary and become a pastor. And that's when I had to start really saying no. Right. If you're celebrating this resurrection, it should be on the same day. But one of the things that came out of the Council of Nicaea was for Athanasius of Alexandria to start to let the church know when to celebrate Easter, when Christians all over the Roman Empire are supposed to celebrate Easter. So because they were doing it at different times. Many Christians used to celebrate it on March 25th, year in, year out, no matter what. That way, March 25th, um, March 25th would coincide with December 25th as the birth, and March 25th was also the day that his mother Mary supposedly got pregnant. If I would have went to seminary and learned a lot more earlier than I did learn, I just would have walked away sooner. I just would have walked away sooner. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a legit business where you can sell faith and hope. Let me tell you something. Not that I'm struggling, because I'm not struggling financially, not at all. But I was laying in bed the other night and I was thinking like, what is the greatest talent that I have that I can monetize? And I'm still asking myself that question right now. What is the greatest talent that I have that I can monetize? I don't want to, I'm not going to go back into IT. I don't want to become a fitness person again because I know I'm not going to be committed to that or what it would take. And I was thinking about that. Now, if I wanted to be crooked, starting a religion, shit, that'd be the biggest money maker. I think that I could become a millionaire within 5 years. I would be a multi-millionaire if I started a religion. Yep, you go to school for a religious degree because it is a business. Um, Osteen had a bunch of money in the walls of the church. I did not. I, I thought I heard something about them having a whole bunch of money in the walls of the church. I didn't necessarily read up on it, but I did see something like that. And I mean, I don't believe that Kenneth Copeland or Benny Hinn actually believe what they're preaching either. They know that they are making money off the show, and these fools are buying into it. Ha 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 ha. Hell yeah. Y'all wouldn't want me to take Paula White's job. I get assassinated. Now I remember when he wouldn't let people in during the hurricane and kept the doors closed because he didn't want all the people messing up his church. You're so welcome, sir. And that's the plan. I don't know. Like, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Back in what year was that? 2018? Yeah, around 2018. I had a group of people who wanted me to start a hermetic organization. Like start a hermetic organization. And I was with them at first, but then they wanted to make it more of a religion, and that's what made me kind of step away from it. But I ain't gonna lie, I was tempted. I was tempted because I know you can make some money. You can make some money. The biggest problem they had with me is that I would not go 100% on the hermetic principle of the all because I only look at the all as a possibility. I would not look at it as a finite, and because I would always have to say I have no we this is our best estimate as to what happens after you die, but we don't know. I couldn't promise a heaven. So that's why the whole deal fell apart. He gassed up. Oh yeah, for that private jet, he did. He had them all. God told me I need a private jet, so we need to raise $30 million so I can get this private jet. Did he ever get it? Did he ever get the private jet? I didn't follow up on that to see if he ever got that private jet. Hmm. Cigar is real good, and I'm trying not to fit but it burnt my finger right there. Trying not to give it. I don't know. I could start the alchemical hermetic society. I use alchemy and the hermetic principles to teach people how to grow in their enlightenment, open their chakras, so that their consciousness can reach a state where they become a master, and thereby at the end of their existence on this planet, that they will become like the all in manifesting their own universe within the consciousness of self. See, you got to learn how to control your energies and your emotions so that thought and emotion and instinct all work hand in hand together to bring you up to a place of peace, so that you can then ascend as a master and manifest your own destiny and your own reality. Tim, that is a good cigar, a good flavor cigar that Dwayne is saying that he's smoking right now. The Java Latte, but also the Java Red, which is chocolate. A lot of people like that one. If you like mint, like chocolate mint, then the Java mint. But the Java ones, and then of course there's a Fat Bottom Betty, but those are strong. Fat Bottom Betties are strong as shit. But the a Tabac Dolce is also a good flavored cigar, especially with coffee. I don't smoke the flavor myself. And that goes for you to, no, that's so fine, man. That was King Luther who asked that. I don't make a whole bunch of money on YouTube. A couple of dollars here and there. A couple of dollars. Yep. When YouTube and Facebook changed the algorithm and everything dropped, I did have a little donation thing that I would, but we're fine. Now, if you just want to, I ain't gonna stop you, because we low on cigars right now. Yep, I thought about that, having a product. Now, my wife she's been on my ass about finishing the one book about relationship so that I can take the time to write books about deconstructing. So I will do that. But that's been a thought as well. Oh no, King Luther, that's not the Java Latte is a cigar and it goes great with coffee. Now, Fat Bottom Betty, you definitely want to make sure that you eat before you smoke that thing, because it is a Maduro leaf. It is going to be strong. Nobody's smoking your stinky cigars, but you enjoyed it all your own. See, I think in order for my channel to actually make a big splash on social media, I would have to start saying things that are finite. Pretty much creating that religious format of the divine paradox, which are things that I do accept, but I would have to make that movement to start making that kind of more of a thing, like you should agree with me on the Hermetics, and you should agree with me on chakras, and basically just a process of energy. I would have to start being more emphatic about you should agree with me and not have your own thoughts. But it'll be pretty much creating a religion. So I don't necessarily know if that's something I want to do, because there are more people who leave religion but look for another religion. I think because most of the time when I see there are more people who desire to leave Christianity than have left, but they want something else to go to, another system to go towards. So I would have to just because I chose to study as my primary study chakras, the Tao, Hermetics, alchemy, should I promote that for other people as well? I mean, Morgu does great with Hyperionism, does fantastic, but he had to pick a lane. You see what I'm saying? He had to promote it in such a way that it is pretty much a religion. I would have to do that. If I really wanted to take this and make it into something like that, I'd have to go that route. Don't quite know if I want to go that route. You know? And no, there wouldn't be any judgments. The only judgment that you would have would be the judgments towards yourself. So, like, the only thing that is a sin is when you do something that is outside of what is best for you, or if you do something that harms somebody else, especially when you harm them in ways that you wouldn't desire to be harmed yourself. Yep, most people are just followers. Yeah, most people don't tell the whole. They can't tell you the whole story of these Bible stories because they know how jacked up it is. On the religion of non-religion. Okay, this is the religion of non-religion. You know what is that church? It's the damn. I went to one of them for a little while when I first stepped away from Christianity. The Unitarian, yeah, I think it's Unitarian Church. I found their services interesting because they started out with meditating. They talked about chakras. Then they would sing like Christian songs or almost a Christian song. And then they only preach from the Bible, but they would talk about chakras and, you know, have some Buddhist stuff. And I was like, nah, y'all still practicing Jesus. Oh, I didn't even click on that. How would you prove utility? What would be your unique value proposition? Using those business terms on me like that, Isaac? Oh, I'm damn sure texting you now. How would I prove? I mean, the proof of utility is basically, if I understand you correctly, so like right now, I know that in order to manifest my health in the way that I desire for it to be, it's not through prayer, but it's through meditation to decrease my stress and increase the vibration of healthy thinking. Also, to energize my body with healthier foods, less meat, less dead foods, if any dead foods at all. And then to get my ass out and work out and be active. And the higher I raise that vibration on the pole of health, then the more to the right I am going. So I would demonstrate it through the actually physically doing it by processes that you know how the universe functions on that pole. The pole of health functions on what you eat, your stress level, and your exercise level. So you have to raise your vibration in those active areas in order to move along that pole to higher and better health than lower health. I hope I'm answering your question in the way the right. I hope that was your question, unless I misunderstood you. Yes, Lot's daughter got freaky and had sex with their daddy. It's kind of nasty because they thought they were the only. There was no other people on the planet. So that's how I like if I was actually added, because I wouldn't switch from deconstructing from Christianity, but adding, because I wouldn't deconstruct because that would be part of my recruiting is deconstructing. So if I were to add that as a pathway of thought, then those types of things would create people, and I hate to use this term, but it would create people's believability, because I would be telling them, hey, this is, you want to become, most people want to become financially stable. You're not going to become that by just giving money to the organization. Your money that you give to the organization is a grateful gift. Thank you. But if you want to create that, then we have to understand budgets, investments, and savings, and making yourself more valuable in the marketplace. This is the process by which you do that. Go follow it. If you follow it, you will find yourself in a better financial situation. So, the people who I was talking, they didn't want me to do that either. They didn't want me to talk about putting people on budgets and teaching them how to invest their money. And well, my thought process is, if the more people make more money and they see that you are the one to help them, then the more likely they are to either donate to your cause, or the more likely they are to, if it was just on social media, to watch and stay watching and promote it to other people. Hell no, I ain't starting a cookbook. If I did anything in the fitness thing, it would be, I would start a channel where you would have to pay a membership, say like $35 a month. Every week, I would record live 3 at-home workouts per week for you to follow, give you the dietary advice, talk about journaling, the life coaching aspect of getting your body in order, gets your life in order. And it would be a membership-based online training program. I'm not doing no damn cookbooks, because all you'll be eating is vegetables and fruits. And I'm not that big into cooking. They say, if believing did anything, I'm sure millions of people would do just nothing. What? Did anything, people would do. Yeah, they wouldn't. They would just sit around. Yeah, because I kind of understand what you said, but a little bit of it, I don't know. What the hell? What is NLP, Isaac? What's NLP? That's what happened in the Lot story, though. They slept with their father. One sister one night, the other sister the next night. And the Jesus character comes in the line of the first sister who slept with her daddy. Yeah, people are the agents of their own demise. It's not like the same as back then. But also, people, the internet has afforded people the opportunity to increase their finances and increase their knowledge tremendously. But you can destroy yourself as well. Oh, I haven't heard that term in a very, very long time. Tony Robbins used to talk about that all the time, and I barely remember some of it. I, Matter of fact, I can't even think of any of it right now. I remember him talking about that a lot in the early 2000s, but I don't remember. You'll have to. Oh, it's related to hypnotism. Is that like affirmations? Like if you keep repeating something to yourself, or You're programming your mind to think a certain way by constantly having reminders around you, verbally, physically, visually, that moves you in a direction that you desire to go in. Because I do understand that, and that is something that I use for my own self. And really, those are things that you can see have a development from the times of um, Peel to all the way up to today. From what's the guy who wrote Heal. When we owned the cigar lounge, we did have our own line of cigars. But you have to understand the margin, the profit margin on cigars are very low. They're not that high. If I were to do a brick and mortar business again, it would either be a bar, bar restaurant, or a gourmet popcorn shop again. And those are not out of the question. Oh, it's notice that it uses words, tones, sounds, and to make someone more easily influenced. Oh, well, we'll have to talk about that when we have our conversation, sir. Because I will be texting you when this video is over. Because I said I'll text you this month to make good on my statement. So you'll be hearing from me in about 30 minutes or less. Yeah, that's who I was trying to think of. Napoleon Hill. Thank you. Shit. It depends. It depends. It depends. But yeah, it's too much competition in that. I think you're talking about the cigar world. Too much competition, and there's not enough margins for the competition. As an atheist slash agnostic, do you get lingering feelings that you may be deceived by a powerful delusion God sent? For some reason, I was getting that feeling recently. If so, how did you deal with it? Well, the first thing that I did was I realized that the reason why I feel that is because it's a holdover from my previous beliefs. You have to remember, you were inundated with the ideas that if you were to walk away from this God and you have been deceived by the devil and that you are now in the power of the devil and he came to kill, steal, and destroy and lie. He's the father of lies and all these things, and you're going to go to hell. So that little bit still kind of like gets with you. So I took myself through the process of, and this is why chakras have always been a part of my process, because fear, all of that comes from fear. So in the chakra process, it is opening your root chakra and recognizing where your fears come from. And then are those fears validated? And once I realized that the only reason I had fears of the fact that I walked away from this religion is because of the indoctrination of the unproven aspects of this religion. There is no hell. There is no devil. Other than your own devil that you have within yourself and everybody else has within themselves, there is no devil. So if there is no devil, then there is no hell. If this Christian God is not real, then of course there is no hell because the Christian God is not real. So as I would sit and meditate through the logical thinking and intellectually thinking through the fears of that comes from Christianity, over time, it dissipated. It went away. And that works for me better than, seeing the devil on a boat and hell on a boat and floating farther and farther and farther and farther and farther and farther until you don't see it anymore and it's gone. No. Logic, constructive thinking, critical thinking rather, facts. It doesn't, the Bible is so filled with plot holes and incorrect information that I just got over the fear of it. Curious, is there any evidence of chakra? Asking because I generally don't know. When I was researching chakras, one of the things that caught my attention was the acupuncture, the world of acupuncture, and the world of I forgot it. What's the people who mess with your feet? Reflexology. And also with acupuncture, I thought about my martial art history, and there are pressure points within the body. These pressure points, a lot of them, if not all of them, line up with the energy points of acupuncture. And since we know, and that when you look at Western medicine, they know that there are certain energy points within the body. So since there are these energy points, then it gives me a little bit, it gave me a lot, not a little bit, it gave me a lot more confidence in the idea that you have different energy points all over your body. The chakra system is just talking about 7 of your main energy points. And then we know that we are energy. And even though we don't understand how energy fully works, and we don't even know how the body fully works, the fact that those focusing on those points helped me to get past fear, shame, guilt, love, lost love, all these different things, the disconnections, being able to be completely honest and truthful at all times, detaching from earthly material and earthly things and emotional things. And then it put my emotions and my thoughts in line with each other, my emotions, thoughts, and instincts in line with each other. It allowed me to be able to do that. So since I know that these energy points do exist through Eastern medicines and Eastern thoughts, and some levels of Western medicine agrees with it, it works. Let's see. I know I missed some comments. Let's see. I don't know what you guys are talking about as far as that. So let me get, I don't know what that conversation is about. If they, in your opinion, what is the strongest argument for God's existence, and what is your refutation of that? Well, the strongest argument, in my opinion, for the existence of a God is the order of the universe. The fact that the universe is in a constant grip of creation and destruction, and that the universe, even within its chaos, there is order. That there must be some intelligent design to that. But therein lies the problem, in the fact that the universe is constantly chaotic and has order at the same time, yet what we see as order is not necessarily order. Humans exist on this planet, but in an order format, we were designed to exist on this planet in the tropical regions of this planet. We were never meant to exist outside of the tropics, but yet we can exist outside the tropics because we can go against nature and be chaotic within the order of nature, because at the end of the day, we are animals with higher levels of reasoning and consciousness. But If this universe was created by a creator, we wouldn't, just like every other thing that is supposed to be in the order aspect of nature, we wouldn't be able to step outside of that order. We would have to be contained within it, just like a lion is contained within the order of its nature, an elephant in the order of its nature, a dolphin, and every other creature on this planet. So, where there should be an intelligence in that design, it shows that there is not an intelligence, because you wouldn't give, if you were trying to create a perfect creation, you wouldn't allow for reasonable beings to be able to corrupt your creation. Now, also, because we can see that singularities happen all the time, and that the universe has constantly been going through this process of singularities of creation and then either heat death or contraction. Therein means that there is no create or no creator. It's just how the universe is. So it doesn't require a creator. Does sexual impurity and premarital sex actually exist? It depends on what culture you're talking about. Sexual impurities are based on human concepts, man concepts, based on their culture. And yeah, well, pretty just based on the culture, right? So, uh, premarital sex, because marriage in our world today in America doesn't start until you actually sign some paperwork. That's when marriage started in America. Now, if we were to go back 2,000 years, 3,000 years, marriage started when you had sex. But culturally, that has changed. So it depends on the culture. Things that were considered impurities in sex, sexual impurities, that are considered sexual impurities today weren't sexual impurities in the Roman Empire. In the Romans and the Greeks and many other cultures, men having sex with each other wasn't considered impurity. And then after a while, it became, when Christianity took over, it became an impurity. Men having sex with their slaves and women having sex with their slaves wasn't an impure thing. American slavery, some groups thought it was impurity, others thought it wasn't. So sexual impurities, premarital sex is all culturally based. In 100 years from now, there's no telling what will be considered that. This joker, that joker right there. Yes, tell them, LaQuinn. Tell them, my guy. And I know he's using that term, but if you go to a church that is led, that there are LGBTQ churches, they are not going to say that their lifestyle is an impurity, but you go to the church down the street and they will say something totally different. Yeah. I actually, to a certain degree, admire the openness of the Roman Empire, where you explored, everyone was allowed to explore their sexuality. Now, I have my you going too far. If it involved kids, you were going too far. Understanding that their definition of from child to adult starts at 12, like 12, 13, you become an adult to them. So their mindset was different, because I think at 12 or 13, you put on the toga virilis or something like that, which means that you're an adult now. Now, of course, we don't see that in the same way. Yeah, this blows my mind. There are I don't understand how anyone could be in that community and still claim Christianity. I they to me they shouldn't be Christian. The religion don't like you. The religion is against you. That God is against you. Why would you still be in that religion? Um, it's possible that Paul was a real person, even though I don't think Paul was a real person. I think the letters of Paul were written by Josephus ben Matthias. I don't think that Paul was a real person. If they weren't written by Josephus, then they were probably written by Philo of Alexander. I personally don't think Paul was a real person. But somebody wrote at least 7 of those letters, and they claim to be a guy named Paul. But there's no evidence of any of Paul's journeys, any places that he'd been. There's no archaeological evidence of Paul. Good point. Thinking about what you said about all the chaos and having an order, what if the observable imperfections are part of that order slash nature? Would that necessitate a force that maintains that order or nature? It could, but at the same time, it could not. A meteorite crashes on Earth. It destroys all of our current civilization right now. It's all overdone, said. To us, it's chaos. But over the next 3 million years, or even 100,000 years, a new type of life is born on Earth. And that life now begins to thrive. But we all had to be decimated in order for that life to thrive. So there's order out of that chaos. That's just how the universe functions, because shit's just flying around, galaxies are merging, and when galaxies merge, shit's gonna crisscross. So, and then different as it's just always crisscrossing of different things. But that's just how that's the order of the universe. There is order within that chaos. It is only seen positive or negative based on what the results are. And to whom is it a positive and whom is it a negative? For us, we would see it as a negative. The asteroid blanks us out right now, or just destroys enough of the Earth to throw all the world into chaos, and we uh, nations fall apart and all that. Some people would think that's great, like me. Others would think that that's a horrible thing. But that's just the nature of the universe. Doesn't mean that there's a God that's doing it. And yes, Christopher is right. There's more evidence that would support evolution than there is that would support the Bible. It's evolution is got a big ass lead. Um, there's archaeological evidence of a few people, but none of the main people, for the most part. So, is there evidence that Pontius Pilate existed? Sure. Uh, there's only one little piece of evidence that David may have existed, but it's not clear if David actually existed. And I think that's the Mesha Stele, or it's either the Mesha Stele or the Tel Dan Stele. It's one of those steles that mentions the house of David. Um, certain people who was in charge, like Jehoiakim, Hezekiah, them being in charge. But 180,000 of the Assyrians killed by an angel, not so much. So you can find little things like that. No one prior to the 8th century BCE, none of them. There's no evidence of them, and there's no evidence of any of the disciples, the apostles of the New Testament. You really don't have evidence of nobody until you get early church fathers, until you get Justin Martyrs and Irenaeus's and people like that. Yes, and one mistake that a lot of people make about the evolutionary theory, we didn't evolve from monkeys. That's not how evolution works. It is about a common ancestor and I think four different branches from that, but not from the monkey we branched off. So yeah, and there's no evidence of a God that predates human sociology or human language. Yeah, there's no evidence of any God. Any God that anybody ever believed in at any time, there's no evidence of that God. Period. None. None. It doesn't matter what religion it is. There's not a lot of, if you mean real manuscripts, like full binded manuscripts, there's not a lot. You'll mostly find a little scrap here, a little scrap there. You don't. There's not a lot of them. Now, when they claim that there are over 50,000 or 5,000, whatever that number is, manuscripts, they're counting these little pieces and then they're counting copies. Okay, so this person wrote this, another person copied it, and another person copied it, and another person copied it, and copied it, and copied and copied and copied. Oh, they're counting all 5,000 of those. But that's just the one that they just copied. And even when they copied it, all the copies don't 100% match up. And they'll say that because there are all those copies, that just means that a whole bunch of people was believing it. That's all that means. That's just like, and I just get to do this just because I'm proud of my little work for my new comic book channel. How many copies were made of each one of these comic books that are on my wall? Literally, the runs are in the millions. So does that mean that in the New Mutants, what is that, 3? I can't even see the number. The first appearance of Deadpool and Domino and Gideon, the one that's right in the middle, right there. Does that mean that they're real? Does that mean that they're real? Does it mean that they're real? Huh? It doesn't mean that they're real. Did Forge and Storm get married? Nope. I had to look up, and that copy is up there when Forge and Storm got married. No, it doesn't mean that. Mm-mm. Not even. Oh, I got like a whole bunch of X Force. Like the first X Force, I got from number 1 all the way that run from the number 1 all the way till 97, 98. But it doesn't mean that any of those people exist. And then we have to remember a lot of these biblical stories are borrowed or stolen, as some people like to say, from other sources. And really they're just changed based on those previous sources. They are real. It is spoken in the gospel of Marvel. You got that L on the end, that EL on the end. Right. And you have to understand, like Macy is saying, if you make copies of copies of copies of things, you eventually end up with a garbled mess. And the difference between my comic books, and that's just 45 of the 2,000, 3,000 that I have. Those are going to be accurate because of our modern ability to copy something. But when you look at their time frame, there was no way they could make those copies. There's no way that those things are going to stay accurate. So that's why there's so many differences. That's why the King James is a horrible translation. Uh, there are differences in the Geneva Bible, differences in the Tinsdale that differ from the Codex Sinaiticus and the Valentinus. There are so many different. Even the Septuagint is different from the Hebrew versions of the Old Testament. And then even going back to comic book, if I told the lie of Spider-Man 1,000,000 times, it doesn't make it truth. Somebody said, what is it? King Luther said he turned into the Hulk when he's mad. That joke. He turned into the Hulk when he's mad. You have a spiritual connection with Storm? Yes, you have to have a relationship. Especially when she was, I got the what if when she turned into Thor. Yeah. Especially when she gained the powers of Thor. Not only is Batman real, but I have Dark Claw, #1 Almagram. When Batman and Wolverine were fused together to be one being, that's the duat. Not the Trinity, but the duat. Batman, Wolverine fused into one. You can make a religion out of this shit, actually, as I'm looking up here on some of it. And Jesus is the super soldier in Almagram. Captain America and Superman fused into one. Ah, this Joker. I'm about to leave y'all alone. Uncle Ben, forgive him. He knows not what he said. Oh, Holy Peter, slain whales not in his way. Ah, of course I watch Invincible. Did I not just show you my wall? Of course I watch Invincible. Of course I watch The Boys. Did I not just show you my wall? Of course I watch The Boys. Yep. Now look, hey, all this Marvel stuff, that's for my other channel. Cowboy Cool Comics on YouTube. That's for that channel. For all you guys who like that kind of stuff. I will implore you to go over and start subscribing to my new channel. For all my comic book people out there, just jump on over there to Cowboy Cool Comics. Because I have to talk about other stuff. I can't just talk about this all the time. Oh man, I answered this question. See, this is why I need to start a religion. We either go into nothingness or our consciousness stays together, and most people's consciousness will be frightening and frightful and return, or your consciousness will reach the level of ascension and you will create and manifest your own existence after you leave this existence. But if I had to put money on it, I'm going to say that your consciousness just disperses, the energy just disperses, and you just cease to exist. In the same way that your consciousness didn't exist in a cohesiveness before you are who you are right now, it more likely is not going to exist cohesively after. I'm just getting started. So right now it's not even every day. It's like I just did the first videos last night. because I just finished that wall last night. I didn't even make one for today. So as the channel grow, I'll start adding more and more. And that channel really is part of my escapism. The energy of your brain recycles into something else, like how sardine brains turns into energy that's they're powered by body. Yeah. I just don't I honestly just think your energy just dissipates and goes somewhere else and becomes parts of other parts of it. Whatever like energy that it's attracted to, and you just cease to exist. That's it. And I'm okay with that. Like, to me, that should make a person realize how valuable life is right now and stop being stupid and doing stupid shit. Stop living your life for a job, living your life for your family, living your life because of a society or something like that, and really explore who you are and let yourself be free to be who you are, as long as you're not hurting someone else. So that's that's why, like, I was working I was working every day for the last 10, 12 years. And then when I saw an opportunity where I didn't have to work every day, do I have as much money coming in as I had coming in beforehand for over the last 15 years? No, but am I in a position where I can live a decent life, but be able to enjoy life? Fuck yeah, let me take this opportunity and do this. Because who knows? We don't know. So why am I wasting my time? But like Dwayne just said, pow! It is time. Like, I used to sing this song to my children when they were little, and I can't sing, so don't get mad. But it's time for us to say good night to all our little children. C'est la vie et mon ami. It's time for you to go to sleep, and that's what it's time for y'all to go to sleep. The day is over. The night is over. So I appreciate everyone for being here, but it's time to go. Remember, we're going to be here tomorrow night to do What is Wrong with the Bible. I believe we are on, I know we're in Joshua. So it should be Joshua. Let me tell you, 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 let me tell you. 15 and 16 for those who want to get ahead. It's going to be Joshua 15 and 16 tomorrow. What's Wrong with the Bible? Look forward to it. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we will begin. And so until such time, appreciate everybody for being here. You guys have been wonderful, been great. And y'all have a great night. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good vibration, good journey. And yes, Leon, may Stan Lee be with you as well, with Jack Kirby sitting on the right hand side of glory. Good night. Y'all stupid.